You've just played the hardest match of your life, a World Cup knockout tie, 120 minutes of football, 90, plus extra time, and it's still level. Your legs are gone, your lungs are burning. Somebody has to go through, and somebody has to go home. So what happens next? Nothing that involves football. Instead, you're led into a room. An official produces a coin. He flips it into the air, and in the time it takes that little piece of metal to spin and land, your World Cup is decided. Not by a shot, not by a save, by heads or tails. Sounds like a joke, doesn't it? It isn't. For the first 4 decades of international football, this was real. Matches at the very highest level, including places at the World Cup itself, were settled by coin tosses and by drawing lots out of a drum. Pure, naked luck. Today, we take the alternative completely for granted. Penalty shootouts are the beating heart of every modern knockout tournament. Right now, in the 2026 World Cup, every tied knockout match marches to that unbearable ritual. 5 kicks each, 1 hero, 1 broken man, a billion people watching through their fingers. We call shootouts cruel. We call them a lottery. But here's the thing. Football knows what an actual lottery looks like, because it used one. So how did the World Cup really crown winners before penalty shootouts existed? Let's start with the standard solution, the one football leaned on for most of a century, the replay. If a knockout match ended level, you simply played the whole thing again. Another day, another 90 minutes, sometimes another extra time. And if that was level 2, another replay. In theory, forever. And this happened at the World Cup itself. At the 1934 tournament in Italy, the quarterfinal between the hosts and Spain finished 1-1 after extra time. So the 2 exhausted teams were ordered back onto the same pitch the very next day, barely 24 hours later, to play the entire match again. That first game had been so ferociously physical that Spain had to take the field for the replay without several of their battered players, including their legendary goalkeeper. Italy won the replay 1-0 and marched on. Think about the brutality of that. No squad rotation, remember? This is also the era before substitutes. The same 11 men, or whatever was left of them, dragging themselves through 2 full matches in 2 days, in a knockout tournament, with the World Cup on the line. Replays worked, in the sense that a football result eventually decided things, but they had 2 enormous problems. They wrecked the players, and in a tournament running on a tight schedule, teams booked on ships home, stadiums booked for the next round, there simply wasn't always room in the calendar to keep replaying forever. So football needed a backstop, a final tiebreaker for when even the replay was drawn. And the backstop they chose is the part of this story that modern fans genuinely struggle to believe. The backstop was luck. Official, sanctioned, tournament-deciding luck. Drawing lots, tossing a coin. And the most extraordinary example is how one country reached the World Cup itself. In 1954, Spain and Turkey met in a qualifier for that summer's World Cup in Switzerland. Spain won one leg, Turkey won the other. There was no aggregate goals rule to separate them back then, so they played a third deciding match, and that ended 2-2. Level again. No more replays scheduled. The World Cup place had to be settled, right there. So it was settled by drawing lots. Names went in, a draw was made, famously performed by a young Italian boy, chosen because he was a neutral party, pulling the answer out blind. And luck chose Turkey. Let that sink in. Spain, one of the great football nations, with some of the finest players of the era, did not go to the 1954 World Cup because of a shot, a save, or a goal. They stayed home because of a draw from a drum, and Turkey went to the World Cup finals the same way you win a raffle. Football at the time just accepted this. It was written into the rules. When the game could not decide, chance would. The system limped along for decades, and then, in the summer of 1968, it produced the moment so absurd that it effectively killed itself. The 1968 European Championship semifinal hosts Italy against the Soviet Union in Naples, in front of roughly 70,000 fans. 2 great footballing rivals, a place in the final at stake, and it's worth adding, this is still the no-substitutes era, and Italy lost their playmaker to injury early on, so they had to grind through much of the match effectively with 10 fit men, 120 minutes, no goals, 0-0. There was no time for a replay before the final, so the 2 captains and the officials went into the dressing rooms beneath the stadium, and a coin was produced. 1 flip. Italy called correctly, and that was it. 70,000 people in the stadium, 2 national teams who had just emptied themselves for 2 hours. And a place in a European Championship final, decided in a back room, by a spinning coin, with the losing team not even beaten, just unlucky. The Soviet players had done nothing wrong. They lost to tails. Italy went on to win the final, which itself had to be replayed after a draw, because of course it did, and lifted their first ever European title, a trophy with a coin toss baked into its foundations. That night in Naples did something important. It made the absurdity impossible to ignore. Football's biggest matches were being decided by methods you'd use to settle an argument in a pub. Everyone could feel it. Something had to change. Just imagine being a player in that dressing room. You've trained your whole life for this. You've survived qualifying, group stages, the tension of a knockout tie. You've run yourself hollow for 2 2 hours in front of 70,000 screaming people. Everything you have is on that pitch. And now you're standing in a concrete room under the stands, still dripping sweat, watching a man take a coin out of his pocket. Your international career, the final you've dreamed about since you were a boy, has come down to the same 50-50 as calling the kickoff. The coin goes up, it turns over in the air, and you realize, in that suspended half-second, the truly maddening thing, there is nothing you can do. No skill applies here, no courage, no greatness. The best player in the world and the worst have exactly the same chance. You cannot win this moment. You can only be handed it, or robbed of it. The coin lands, someone erupts, someone goes silent, and both of them know it meant nothing about who deserved it. That feeling, that helplessness, is what football finally decided it could no longer stomach. The fix came from an unlikely place, a German referee named Karl Wald. Around 1970, Wald pitched an idea to his regional football association in Bavaria. Instead of coins and lots, settle drawn matches with a structured contest of penalty kicks, 5 each, alternating. Sudden death after that. It kept the drama, it kept the pressure. But crucially, it put the decision back in the hands of the players. Skill, nerve, and technique would decide, not gravity acting on a coin. The idea spread with astonishing speed. UEFA adopted shootouts for European competitions from the 1970-71 season. FIFA followed, and in 1976, the European Championship final itself, Czechoslovakia against West Germany, became the first major international title decided by a shootout, sealed by Antonin Panenka's outrageous chipped penalty, a kick so audacious it carries his name to this day. The very first major shootout produced one of the most iconic moments in football history. The format didn't just work, it created legends instantly. The World Cup moved a little slower. FIFA put shootouts in the rulebook for the 1978 tournament, but no match needed one. So the first World Cup shootout finally arrived in 1982, in a semi-final for the ages, West Germany against France in Seville, 3-3 after one of the greatest, most dramatic matches ever played. Then the shootout, won by the Germans. And in 1994, the ultimate threshold was crossed. The World Cup final itself, Brazil against Italy, was decided on penalties, ending with Italy's superstar Roberto Baggio blazing the last kick over the bar, one of the most heartbreaking images in the history of sport. The coin was gone. In its place, football had built something crueler and kinder at the same time, a method that can break a player's heart, but at least lets him hold his fate in his own boots. And that's the thing to remember every time you watch a shootout in this World Cup. We call penalties a lottery. Every tournament, after every shootout, somebody says it. It's just luck. It's a coin flip. But it isn't. And football knows, because football actually tried the coin flip. For 40 years, the game handed its biggest moments to pure chance. A drum, a blindfold, a spinning piece of metal in a dressing room. Teams reached the World Cup by raffle. Teams reached finals by tails. The shootout was the escape from that. Yes, it's agonizing. Yes, it can be cruel, ask Roberto Baggio. But when a player stands over that penalty, 12 yards from history, the outcome belongs to him, his technique, his nerve, his choice of corner. The best moments and the worst moments of a shootout are earned by human beings, not assigned by chance. So the next time a knockout match in 2026 goes the distance, and the camera pans down that line of players with their arms around each other, waiting to walk the longest walk in sport, remember what it replaced. Remember the room under the stadium in Naples, and the 70,000 people upstairs who never got a say, and the coin turning over in the air? Football didn't invent the shootout to torture players, it invented it to give them back their fate.